July 14th, 2025 marked a new turning point in the Russia-Ukraine war and international relations, when U.S. President Donald Trump unexpectedly announced a strong ultimatum aimed directly at Moscow. Before a large international media audience, Trump declared that if Russia did not cease military operations in Ukraine within 50 days, the U.S. would impose a 100% tariff on all imported goods from Russia, while also warning that any allies or countries continuing to purchase energy from Russia would not escape severe sanctions. This was not merely a warning, but a clear message that America under Trump was ready to use all economic tools to exert maximum pressure on the Kremlin, forcing Russia to reconsider its strategy in Ukraine. Trump's message immediately sparked a strong wave of reactions on the international stage. Global financial markets fluctuated wildly, energy prices became highly volatile, and in Europe, America's allied countries promptly convened emergency meetings to assess the impact of potential sanctions that could shake the entire regional energy and trade supply chains. Not only stopping at an economic ultimatum, President Trump also announced a new military aid package for Ukraine, prominently featuring the plan to transfer the Patriot air defense system, one of the most advanced defensive weapons in the world today. Alongside this is the commitment that the U.S. will continue to coordinate with European allies through NATO, leveraging international funding sources to transfer more modern weapons to Kiev. This reflects a shift in Washington's strategy, simultaneously combining economic pressure, military support, and diplomacy to achieve the goal of ending the conflict. In response to the intense and decisive actions from the United States, Russia has not shown any signs of faltering. Senior officials such as Dmitry Medvedev and Sergei Lavrov have expressed disdain for Washington's new sanctions, emphasizing that Russia has enough experience and capability to endure and even overcome the economic sanctions from the West. They reiterated that despite previous rounds of sanctions, the Russian economy has remained resilient and military operations in Ukraine continue at a high intensity. Not only responding diplomatically, Russia continued to intensify military activities in Ukraine in mid-July. On July 15th and 16th, Russian forces carried out a series of airstrikes and UAV attacks on key areas such as Kharkiv, Sumy, Kupiansk, and Kryvyi Rih. Many residential areas were severely affected, with power and water systems disrupted, causing civilian casualties and worsening the humanitarian situation in Ukraine. However, despite the fierce attacks from Russia, the Ukrainian military remained resilient in their defense. A video released by Ukraine on July 16th showed their UAV destroying a Russian long-range artillery piece, demonstrating the counterattack capability and the level of weapon modernization of the defense forces. Amid escalating conflict, concerns about the supply of weapons to Ukraine have become a focal point. The Pentagon had temporarily halted some weapon shipments, including Patriot interceptor missiles and high-explosive artillery shells, due to worries about depleting stockpiles and new priorities for domestic defense, as well as support for Israel. Facing this challenge, Ukraine has been forced to seek more flexible solutions, proposing that European countries use their defense budgets to purchase American weapons and then transfer them to Kiev, opening a new path to ensure an uninterrupted flow of weapons. On the European side, the reaction to President Trump's ultimatum and the developments in the Ukraine conflict has also been very intense. Germany, Finland, the Netherlands, and many other allies have urged the U.S. to expand military support, while committing to fund additional new weapons packages for Ukraine. Diplomatic channels between the U.S. and Europe are operating at full capacity to unify a common front that both increases pressure on Russia and maximally supports Ukraine in protecting its sovereignty and civilians against fierce attacks. Another important development is that the U.S. and Russia have agreed to hold another round of negotiations within the next 2 weeks to explore possibilities for ending the conflict in Ukraine. This move has been welcomed by the international community as it opens up hope for a diplomatic solution to the war that has lasted more than 2 years and caused immense suffering and loss. Kirill Dmitriev, one of the influential figures in Russia, affirmed that Moscow will maintain constructive dialogue with Washington in a spirit of mutual respect despite the current tensions. However, beneath the surface of diplomatic moves lies the harsh reality of warfare and complex strategic calculations. Russia continues to show determination not to concede under economic and military pressure from the West. Russia's latest attacks are not only aimed at military infrastructure, but also directly target major cities, disrupting the lives of millions of Ukrainian people. Images of collapsed buildings, frightened people seeking shelter, and hospitals operating under shortages of electricity and water have become heartbreaking scenes of the war. In the opposite direction, Ukraine maximizes all resources from the West, continuously upgrading and modernizing its arsenal, notably air defense systems, reconnaissance, and attack UAVs. The successes in destroying high-value Russian targets with UAVs are not only militarily significant, but also symbolic, affirming Kiev's determination and resistance capability. Along with that, the fighting spirit of the Ukrainian people and army continues to be strengthened thanks to both material and moral support from the international community. Meanwhile, European countries are facing a difficult problem regarding energy and economic security. President Trump's warning to impose a 100% tariff on countries that continue to purchase energy from Russia has put Europe in a dilemma. They must find ways to ensure energy supply for the population and production, while not wanting to become targets of sanctions from the U.S. Many European countries have had to accelerate programs to diversify supply sources, invest heavily in renewable energy, and negotiate with new suppliers in the Middle East, North Africa, and Latin America to reduce dependence on Russia. On the other hand, President Trump's 50-day ultimatum is also a major test of the cohesion of the Western alliance. Allied countries must closely coordinate, share intelligence, unify sanctions measures, and support weapons in a way that is both effective and avoids internal division. Many European leaders have expressed support for the U.S.'s tough stance, but there are also numerous concerns about the long-term economic consequences, especially the risk of global market imbalances and exacerbating domestic inflation. Outside the scope of the conflict and sanctions, the upcoming rounds of negotiations between the U.S. and Russia are expected to create a diplomatic way out of the prolonged conflict. Observers note that, although the two sides still have many deep disagreements over goals and interests, maintaining the dialogue channel is a positive signal amid the increasing risks of military escalation and humanitarian disaster. Many experts emphasize that only the path of negotiation can bring sustainable peace to Ukraine and restore stability to the region. On July 16, 2025, all eyes once again turned to Kiev, Moscow, Washington, and the major capitals of Europe. The decisions made at this moment will not only shape the future of the Russia-Ukraine war, but also have far-reaching impacts on the global security and economic order for years to come. In the storm of history, every action, every statement carries the weight of the fate of millions of people, those who are waiting for a peaceful outcome, or at least a glimmer of hope for a tomorrow with fewer bombings, less separation and loss. In an atmosphere full of tension, world leaders, from President Trump, the President of the European Commission, to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin, are all under the heavy pressure of history. Every decision, every move on the diplomatic chessboard can reverse the situation, bring peace, or push the world deeper into the spiral of conflict. The people of Ukraine continue to hold on to their land day and night, facing danger but not giving up hope. Each convoy of international aid, each vehicle carrying food and medicine, each box of rechargeable batteries, each UAV delivered, all are bridges connecting the world's compassion with the extraordinary resilience of a nation under trial. In the international political arena, the upcoming negotiations between the U.S. and Russia will be a test of the determination, goodwill, and wisdom of the leaders. Will President Trump's 50-day ultimatum be strong enough to sway the Kremlin? Will Western military support help Ukraine hold the front lines and create breakthroughs on the battlefield? Can the parties find common ground to end the bloodshed, opening the door for reconstruction and reconciliation? Everything is still ahead. However, one thing is certain. July 16, 2025 has become a historic milestone, marking a strong shift in U.S. policy toward the Russia-Ukraine war. It is the day when economic, military, and diplomatic efforts converged, creating unprecedented pressure on Moscow, a new impetus for Kiev, and a major test for the unity of the free world. The road ahead is still full of hardships, but amidst the smoke, fire, and ruins, the belief in peace still flickers, waiting for a moment to shine brightly, when the sound of gunfire ceases and the arms of humanity come together again to build tomorrow.